Welcome everyone to the L7C podcast, College Women's Gymnastics Edition. That is right, College Women's Gymnastics is right on the horizon as we're recording today, which means we got to get you ready for what potentially could happen this season. So we have our gymnastics expert back with us, Miss Sarah Bogan. How are you doing today, ma'am? And welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I can't believe college gymnastics season is so close. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like I live in Florida now and I don't feel winter coming the same way I did in Utah or anywhere else I've lived. But it snuck up on us and I'm very, very excited for it. So looking forward to chatting about it today.
Yeah, and it wasn't just too long ago when you were talking about the Olympics and what was going on over there and the child's medal controversy and like all of that, and that was right in the summertime, and now you're right back in it.
Right. It was a lot to process this summer. And, coming off of, I really feel like last NCAA season was pretty intense too with the Oklahoma meltdown and LSU's first ever championship. So we're keeping the momentum going. So we are going to pull a no, not Jordan Childs. We're pulling a Jade Carey right now, and we're just not stopping. We're going right from college to elite to college again, and we're going to be amazing, hopefully. Hopefully we can match. I don't think we can match Jade Carey in awesomeness, but we are trying.
So just a little brief thing before we start talking about the thing. So when LSU won, right after they won, every sports does their way too early top like 24, 25, things like that. So this was back on April 24th. Like their way too early one. They had Florida at 1, Oklahoma 2, California 3, LSU 4, Utah 5, Michigan State 6. This was by Brandis Hefner, College Gym News, back in April,
Very interesting.
right off the heels of the national championship.
That's very
Obviously, things die down after you do the way too early. Then you go to where we're currently at, right before the season started. Rightfully so. I believe always the champion should be won until knocked off otherwise. You got LSU, California. Well, that's how it fine. That's the final. LSU, California, Utah, Florida, Stanford, Oklahoma. That was like the final six.
mhm.
So let's just talk about it because you talked about it. Oklahoma. I know throughout the podcast thing, I said human error is the only way that they could lose, and it's going to happen eventually. And human error prevailed, and
We did
they did lose.
epically,
Epic, yeah, epically.
epically, and they're still kicking themselves. They are number
Oh,
one.
oh
Like
yeah.
they are number one, and so the WCGA preseason coaches poll did come out
Hmm.
recently. They rightfully, I believe, put Oklahoma first because I think they like everyone has learned you cannot count out Oklahoma. You can't bet against Oklahoma because betting against Oklahoma is just going to make Oklahoma want to win more.
Hmm.
So Oklahoma obviously did not have the nationals they wanted to. They had the epic meltdown on vault, pushed past, had a couple of their falls on beam, couldn't get it together, failed to qualify into the four on the floor, finished sixth in the
Yep.
nation. They have the most unfinished business from 2024 of any team. They also have the number one recruiting class in the nation. So this includes people like Addison Fatta, a longtime elite gymnast, Lily Pederson, who was just a very, very good level 10 gymnast, was looked at to be a really good elite gymnast, but decided to focus on level 10 in college. There are incredible gymnasts coming into that class, along with all the incredible gymnasts who are still there and who are probably very hungry. I'm really interested to see how we've seen Oklahoma respond to its doubters before, which is to, step up and push farther. I think I said this at the end of last season. I'm interested to see how Oklahoma handles themselves being the ones who got in their way. How are they going to respond to the adversity, kind of internally in their own minds? Yeah, what do you think?
It's either going to go both ways. They're either going to be so consumed by revenge that it might hurt them going forward because they might be like, we have I mean, of course, with an organization like that, a coach like there, like it's national championship or bust, like the standard's the standard. But they could be telling themselves, we have to get to this point. We can't have any mess ups. And then when you keep telling yourself that, that's when the mess ups happen. So obviously, we all know they want to reclaim their national title, but in their performances, are they going to be too stiff? Like, I honestly, with them, I really don't care what happens with them in the regular season part of it. It's once you get to the bracket because that's all they're going to be good enough. We know they're going to be in the tournament. We know they're going to probably be a top four seed again. It's when you get to that point where you lost last year, how are you going to respond? Because the other teams, like I mean, I said it last year, LSU and Florida, they were tired of Oklahoma. Like one of them wanted to win, and LSU was the one who got it done. I mean, Florida. Now I'm looking at Florida. I know you're going to preview them, but now I'm looking at them thinking like they're tired of it because not only did they not capitalize on Oklahoma beating themselves, but they let their rival win. So
Mhm.
I think like now they see the cracks in the invincibility. Now is Oklahoma going to glue those cracks, or are more cracks going to happen when the pressure, when it gets to like the Elite Eight, like around there? How are they going to respond?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things KJ Kindler talked about in postseason interviews, obviously Oklahoma coach, six-time now national championship winning coach. One of the things she said was she felt like her team didn't have enough adversity earlier in the season. And
Mm-hmm.
so when they hit the adversity in the semifinals, they didn't know how to
Mm-hmm.
deal with it. They weren't prepared. They were so dominant for
Yep.
years, leading up to this national semifinal. They just didn't know how to deal with all of them having a bad day.
Yep.
And so I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think the regular season is going to be really important for Oklahoma. And I think it's worth noting and worth acknowledging the conference realignment that's
Mm-hmm.
happening and is impacting all college sports right now. Oklahoma is now competing in the SEC. And so, like their rivals, LSU and Florida, we've been talking about, they're going to be competing against them regularly in the regular season. They're going to have the really high pressure SEC championship. The SEC takes their conference championship very, very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And that championship and that dynamic, I think, is going to be another opportunity for Oklahoma to kind of sharpen itself and potentially have some adversity earlier on in the season. And I think that can only help them.
It can, but if they blow the gasket too early and they put everything into potentially winning like their first SEC championship game, and then they get to the tournament and they're just like, oh man, we're kind of gassed out.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's one of those things. Do you want the conference title or do you want your national title?
Yeah, and I think of the SEC teams, my guess is Oklahoma will be a team that's a little bit less susceptible to the prestige of the SEC because they're
Yeah.
new to the Colts, we'll
Hmm.
say. But yeah, it's going to be a really interesting dynamic to watch play out, and that's one aspect of the conference realignment that I'm excited to see happen.
And then you got LSU, the defending champs, won their first ever title. Every time when they win this title, I do think back to the Livy Dunn interview on SportsCenter where he's like, the only thing I got left is to win a national title. They did it that year. Like you said, they also, I mean, no slouch, they have a strong freshman class coming. They got
Mhm.
former elites, Zoe Miller. Lexi, how do
Mhm.
you say her last name?
Lexi
Z
Zeiss.
Zeiss. Okay.
Yes, I believe Lexi. I don't know if Lexi was at Olympic trials. I can't remember where she was, but she definitely was at nationals this past year. Zoe Miller, one of the best bar workers in the country, on the elite circuit. One thing to be aware of with Zoe is that she is dealing with a shoulder injury, so it's a little uncertain whether we'll see her in the lineups. But regardless, LSU is getting really strong
Mm-hmm.
incoming classes. Kaliya Lincoln
Mm-hmm.
could have made the Olympic team if it weren't for the fact that her specialty is also Simone Biles' specialty and Jade Carey's specialty. She's one of the best people we have nationally on floor. And then in a couple of years, Hesley Rivera, the youngest member of the U.S. Olympic team, is committed to LSU down the line. So LSU is very, very good at bringing in the star power. Um, they also have really strong upperclassmen coming back. I believe most of the national
Hmm.
championship winning team has decided to come back, take fifth years, take graduate years. Haleigh Bryant, reigning all-around champion, AAI award winner, just incredible gymnast, is back. One of the things I'm a little concerned about for LSU is because they don't have that experience of being on the top yet. They don't have people biting at their heels. They don't know what that feels like. Um, they're also a team that they're a very extra like they're a team that they're in Baton Rouge. They celebrate.
Oh yeah.
They're like
Hmm.
a big like the morning after they won the national championship, there was a giant statue of the national
Hmm.
championship trophy outside of their gym. Like they have a lot of there's a lot that comes with that fanfare mentally. And then the other thing I'm a little concerned about because we saw this happen to Michigan after Michigan won its first ever national championship several years ago. The following year, they just fell apart in postseason for various reasons. One of them being that the pressure got to them. And then another thing that we saw happen with Michigan, that I think happened with Michigan, was because all these senior gymnasts were on this high from winning the national championships, they stuck around. And that prevented, I think, a lot of the younger gymnasts from being able to gain that experience and get in the lineups. So I'm hoping we don't see that happen with LSU. Like, I hope we continue to see the full range of their roster from super senior all the way down to freshman getting that experience and building that competition experience so that they can be a strong program for years to come. So that's what I'm going to be watching for this year.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing, you won your first title in history. How do you follow it up the year after? Because now, like you said, they have a great class. You got the all-around champ coming back. You have basically the championship nucleus basically all back, pretty much, with additional talent. What are you going to do with that? With that, that's also the reason that you have a head coach. That's the reason you have the coaches. It's their job to delegate and to make sure you're like the super seniors and all of that are still performing at a high level while also nurturing the sensational freshmen, sophomores, so that they can be ready to step in or be the current era at any point in time. I
Mhm.
mean, I will say with them from from the actual gymnastics standpoint, I think that's where you're going to potentially see the thing from a handling themselves standpoint. Let's just be honest, LSU's been the most famous gymnastics team the past couple of years because of
Mhm.
Dunn. So they've already been followed by all the cameras. They've already gone through all the scrutiny. They've already gone all through the fan, like from the glitz and the glamour. Like I think from the media standpoint, they'll be just fine.
That is a good
But
point. Yeah.
what now you have the athletic standpoint. You've always been good, but you could never finish. Now you
Mhm.
did finish. Now there's once expectations are thrust upon you, what are you gonna do? Because like you said in the thing, you got one side, the team who slipped up, who felt like none of you guys should have won, and the next team who we're gonna talk about, who I think may, because you want to talk about having a lot of hate in their hearts. The next team
Yeah.
we're about to talk about has a lot of hate in their hearts because they just can in the past they just can't do it and they're getting sick of it.
Yeah. And I will say, well, I mean, I'll say the name, Florida.
Hmm.
I am going to go ahead and say, I think, in preparing for tonight's episode, I think I'm going to say Florida is my sentimental favorite for this season. I most want to see Florida have a good season and potentially take the title. Because like you said, they have been in the final floor for the past basically since there's been a Final Four.
Hmm.
They got second a couple times in a row. Last year, they had a really tough Final Four. They finished fourth. They didn't perform to their potential. They had the potential to win. And on top of that, adding insult to the injury, I think Florida gymnasts collectively had a very, very good running in the elite season this past year, but basically all of them fell short in some way. So Leann Wong is an incredible gymnast, just incredible, incredible, incredible. She was an alternate for the Olympic team back in 2021 and pulled out all of the stops of the Olympic trials this year. Um, finished just shy of making the team again, was an alternate to the Olympic team, 2 Olympic cycles in a row. She was really graceful about it. She looked really happy, fulfilling that role of alternate. But that's got to sting, man. These are really competitive gymnasts, really incredible women. And she probably, like, I wouldn't be surprised if she feels some serious unfinished business. On top of that, um, we talked about Olympic trials bringing really catastrophic season-ending injuries for multiple top gymnasts. Two of them being Skye Blakely and Kayla DiCello. Both of them ruptured their Achilles. Skye tore her Achilles in podium training, and I'm almost getting a little emotional because I'm remembering the moment Kayla DiCello went. She was the first vault in the entire Olympic trials. Did her vault, went down with the ruptured Achilles, and she and Skye both were expected to make the team. And so talk about like watching a dream die in real time. Both of them are on Florida's team. Kayla, I believe, is a senior. She took last season off to come back to really focus on the Olympics. She's now back. And then Skye Blakely is joining her older sister, Sloane Blakely, and she is now a freshman at Florida. So both of them have been seen in training videos. Both of them have successfully recovered from their surgeries, are, making their way back from those Achilles repairs. But no doubt both of them are very, very hungry to kind of chase a different dream that was deferred during Olympic season. So I think those three are a big reason why they're my sentimental favorites for the year. Yeah, what do you think?
I with the I think the thing I find the most interesting with women's gymnastics when you get to the final four is all four of the teams are there. So
Mhm.
you're all competing against each other. And there is nothing more agonizing, that gets you mad, pisses you off the most, is that you see your rivals holding that championship trophy at the end. Like Florida sat there and watched LSU hoist that title at the end after you're both in the SEC, you both went at it, and you're just there like, we couldn't win when Oklahoma was here. Now the one time they're not here, we just didn't have our best thing, injuries or not. And now out of all the teams here, wasn't California or Utah, it was LSU who
Mhm.
won and not us. Oh, I think their motivation is going to be extremely high, and they might do what LSU did and be like, enough's enough. Now it's our turn to win the title, but they are going to be extremely motivated. These five teams that we're previewing, but I just feel like Florida the most because it's
Mhm.
like they've been right there so many times. If it's not a dominant Oklahoma in front of them, it's a slip up on their accord, either or, and it's just like they can't just ever not have a dominant Oklahoma and not have a slip up. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and remember, like last season, they started really low in the rankings and then
mhm,
like built themselves up. They paced themselves very well.
mhm.
Jenny Rolland, I think, is figuring out how to pace her team to peak at the right time and to grow throughout the season and not burn out too soon. They set themselves up so well, and just to underperform just a little bit, just has got to be brutal. On the topic of competitive energy, before we move on to talk about Cal in Utah, I do want to acknowledge my girl Selena Harris transferred from UCLA to Florida. I can't remember if we talked about this at the end of last season, but Selena Harris has long been one of my favorites. She was 2 years ago, she was the number one recruit in her recruiting class, went to UCLA and is well known to be extremely competitive and to have a fire and an energy and really care about winning and doing well. She very controversially left the program, not by her choice. So she was dismissed from the UCLA team at the end of last season. entered the transfer portal. It was picked up by Florida. The Gymternet has a lot to say about this, but I am a person who has worked with a lot of college age students.
Hmm.
As a spectator, I think it was pretty clear that Selena wasn't happy at UCLA. I don't think UCLA was the right fit for her. And so whatever for her was leading her to do the thing she did that got her dismissed from the UCLA team, my hope is that a little bit more competitive of an environment of Florida will be better for her. And she'll be able to be a better person and a better teammate in kind of a different environment. So UCLA historically has been very competitive. But with the Chris Waller, we talked about Chris Waller leaving the team and Janelle McDonald coming in, there's this turnover, this change in culture. Um, Winning is less important to UCLA, I think, than it is to Selena Harris. And I'll be interested to see how things unfold for her on this new team. My hope is that she'll be able to contribute and that she'll be able to grow. So regardless, it's a really good talent for Florida, and I hope it works out for both parties.
Fair enough, fair enough. Next squad, that's going from the South to the West Coast,
Well,
California,
technically, the Atlantic coast.
the
Right?
Atlantic coast. That is true. That,
California.
yeah, that's true. But they live on the West Coast, but now play in the Atlantic coast. So, oof, conference alignment. Cali, second in 2024. I mean, Sarah, like you've written down, they got a lot of strong talent as well, but they're also losing. But if you return strong talent and lose strong talent, I guess on a side note, how do they do in recruiting?
Yeah, they did okay. They have some decent recruits coming in. The College Gym News has the star ratings. They've got some 3 stars up to 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star recruits, which is what we like to see. This is one like within the top 5 rankings. This is probably the ranking I disagree with.
Okay.
So personally, I would have put Utah ahead of Cal. Um, because I am concerned about them, not getting high, super flashy recruiting classes. I'm concerned about the talent they lost. And I'm also still not quite convinced that they, as a team, have figured out how to deliver when it counts. They did pretty well. They performed very well in the finals last year, but it wasn't a lights out performance. And I am also thinking back to the Pac-12 conference championship, which happened like back when Pac-12 was still a thing. That Pac-12 championship was theirs to lose. They could have beaten Utah. It would have been like they had the talent to do it, but they melted down in their conference championship. Luckily, they got it back together in time for postseason. But I think as a team and as a program and as a coaching staff, they're still trying to figure out how to put all of their talent together to
Hmm.
perform and compete at the same time. Um, and that's a concern I don't have about Utah. Utah is a team you never want to count out. They have an incredible history. Thinking about like everyone had counted out Utah last year because of them losing their head coach, getting a new head coach, being really high profile, really controversial, having to deal with all the scrutiny. And in Carly Dockendorf's first year as head coach, they made it to the Final Four. Like that is impressive. And that shows the kind of competitors they are and the kind of coaching staff they have to push their gymnasts to be able to deliver when it counts. They also are boasting a really big freshman class, big meaning big talent wise. There are about 4 of them, but one of them is number 1 recruit Avery Neff. And so, like those things together, bringing in the high power recruits and the history recently with how they really conduct themselves in postseason and deliver when it counts, I see them making 4 on the floor over California.
Take of the day.
So,
Fire.
yeah, that's my hot take. Depending on how the brackets work out, of course, because
That's
it could be
that's
possible
that's true. You
that we
always
can't
gotta
have
wait
all
till
of.
the bracket comes out.
Yeah.
But I understand. But then what you talked about Utah, I would say obviously you got a lot of Utah in your heart, so that
I
also
do.
equates to it.
That is true. I mean, I have got some California in my heart as well. I believe my heart bracket last year, because I had my brain bracket and my heart bracket. I think if I remember correctly, Cal was my champion,
Yeah.
unless it was LSU. I can't remember, but yeah, I pull for Cal a lot. I want them to figure it out and put it together. But I do think Utah has the edge on them. So my personal rankings going into the season are Oklahoma, LSU, Florida, Utah.
And then you said with Utah down here, you said that they got the number one recruit in the nation.
Avery Neff. Um,
So what made her go to Utah? No
um,
disrespect, but
well, Avery's from Utah, so that's
okay.
yeah. So she grew up in the Salt Lake. I think she's from the Salt Lake area, and so there was an element of staying home. I believe she's LDS, and so like that's and that's a big factor for why Utah got Michaela Skinner. She's practicing Mormon, or member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Excuse me. Um, and so there's a lot of strength in that. Can't beat, Utah's history of greatness really isn't matched by any other team except perhaps Georgia. So um, it's a good place for a good gymnast, especially one that wants to stay close to home.
So right now, obviously, we're not seeing a meet. These are probably, I mean, the top five teams in the country.
Mhm.
Before we go into the other things, what would be off the top of your head a sleeper team that wasn't in this top five that may rise through the ranks and surprise everyone and get to five, or if the bracket swings their way, the final four?
Hmm. Well, I'm gonna go in a perfect world.
Hmm.
I think Michigan State could do it.
Okay.
Michigan State's another team that we were saying this about Cal earlier. Enormous, enormous potential. Um, haven't realized it at the right time in postseason yet,
Mhm.
but the talent is there. Another team I would watch is Alabama. I was really impressed with Bama last year. I thought they did very, very well. And they're another team with a lot of really rich history. So I'll look to Bama and Michigan State and potentially some other of these Big Ten teams. Like Ohio State is just keeps getting better. Yeah, but I don't know about Kentucky. I've been pulling for Kentucky a lot. Um, but they lost some of their really strong seniors.
Mhm.
My hope is that they'll continue to rise. Um, but yeah, those are kind of the big ones, especially Michigan State. I feel strongly about Michigan State's potential.
What about Georgia?
Hmm. Georgia's got some growth to do. Georgia is a team I'm very, very excited to watch in the short term. I'm excited to watch them this season. I'm excited to watch them in the next few years. So we did talk about, like, I think we were doing an Olympic season preview, and I had
Mhm.
talked about the new coach for
Yep.
Georgia because I was just so shocked. Like, Georgia is not messing around with their new coach. So they recruited Simone Biles' coach, Cecile Landy, who is also the coach of Jordan Childs, and Jocelyn Robertson, who is a freshman at Arkansas this year, and really, really strong gymnasts. So she is already bringing in, she and the other co-head coach of Georgia are already successfully recruiting a lot of talent. I think they're going to continue to recruit a lot of talent.
Mhm.
Um, one of the things, they're opening home meet of this season against Boise State. It's already been announced that they're going to have a special guest by the name of, can you guess the name of the special guest?
For I'm so bad at guessing special guests because I'm gonna think like so outside of the box, and it's gonna be someone for which me. Who is it? Give me the teams again.
Georgia. So University of Georgia's first home meet with Cecile Landy as their coach.
They're not Simone.
Yeah, Simone's special guest.
She's gonna
Like
show up to one of these things.
Georgia's not messing around. Georgia's going all out. Like they are bringing the hype back to their gym dogs.
All right.
I am so excited to see where this program goes, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of climbing for them this year. I think they can. But I think anytime a new coach comes in to a program, it takes some time for them to kind of figure things out. Um, so I'm excited to watch them. Even if we don't see results from them right away, it's going to be very exciting to see it all unfold. Another, while we're on Georgia, I think something we talked about the Utah controversy from last season a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
One of the gymnasts that really publicly left the Utah team, Kara Aker, Olympic alternate, world champion, individual beam medalist, has been picked up by Georgia. So she took a year off and had announced that she'd retired, but she came out of retirement to come and give it another run at Georgia. So I'm excited to see Kara hopefully enjoying her life with her new team and her new program, hopefully in a better environment for her.
So to go, since we're already talking about it more like the conference league alignment, just on a side note, how do you feel like personally about like conference realignment, the craziness of the big powers to be just moving their sports teams and whatever for TV contracts, things like that. And I like, how are you feeling about realignment, conference realignment?
It's wild. I mean, I want what's best for the gymnast and blah, 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 all that.
Hmm.
I mean, I personally get a lot of, my team is Utah State.
Hmm.
I love them. They were in the Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference for a long time. They're now in the Mountain West Conference, but they're moving to the Pac-12 next year. And there's something about like a conference and like kind of the regular schedules and like being able to, as a fan, I enjoy the conferences because it kind of like gives you a storyline to follow. It gives you other teams to care about, other teams to follow, a conference championship to care about. It's harder to do that when things are changing all the time. Um, so I don't know. I feel weird about it. I am also kind of concerned. Gymnastics is a smaller sport relative to like men's basketball and football. And a lot of these decisions are being made based on football and what's
Yep.
best for football and TV contracts and all of that. And
Hmm.
what's best for football isn't necessarily what's best for all sports.
Yep.
So I'm a little concerned about the resources of these smaller programs and these smaller sports. And so I worry about that. UCLA and Big Ten, I can't deal with. That's too weird.
Yeah, I don't any of them like the UCLA, USC's that are literally in California and then like meet times because like West Coast, East Coast, like dealing with all of that. And you've already said it, like it's because of the football programs and all that, and it's all about the money and TV contracts, but to what extent that these smaller programs or smaller sports are gonna suffer because not all of them can afford to go cross country and compete here and then fly back. Like that costs money. So,
And it's hard on their bodies too,
hmm.
especially like a gymnast, like flying all that way. Um, and then another thing, I mean, this is kind of going in a different direction, but another concern I have is it's great that kind of because especially like Big Ten, we're both Big Ten people, we're both
Hmm.
from the Midwest. Like um my experience with like as a gym fan, as a gymnastics fan, as a fan of a team that's in a smaller, lesser known conference, I think the Big Ten schools and like schools in the Midwest and schools that aren't the historical teams that are winning national championships are often underestimated, and
Hmm.
they're underestimated to the extent where it, I think, at times impacts what scores they're able to get from the judges. Um, and so, on one hand, I think it could potentially be really awesome for a big name school like UCLA to bring its fandom into the Big Ten and bring more eyes to the Big Ten.
Hmm.
But I worry about their prestige and such just trouncing all over these really deserving Big Ten teams that deserve to be raised rather than like, I hope the effect is that all boats are raised rather than them just being overshadowed. Big 12, there are a lot of really awesome teams in the Big 12. Denver does amazing work. BYU is now in Big 12, but now Utah's going to Big 12, and
Yeah.
hopefully Utah doesn't overshadow all of them. We kind of saw this in the Big 10 preseason poll. So the nationwide WCGA preseason poll ranked UCLA ahead of Michigan State for a conference championship. The Big Ten preseason poll, which I think is more accurate, puts Michigan State over UCLA. Because I think nationwide, people underestimate Big Ten teams. It doesn't say anything about the talent. Michigan State, I believe, is a way more talented team than UCLA is right now. They're way more capable.
Hmm.
UCLA has a lot of internal cultural issues that they've been working through. But because UCLA is a brand name, they get the benefit of the doubt nationwide. I certainly hope we see competition and fairness and scoring within the Big Ten this year, and that um, this judging bias nonsense that we see unfortunately a lot between the brand name schools and the not as brand name schools. I'm just saying I hope it's fair. So I'll let you know how I feel about conference realignment after I see how it plays out this year.
That
But I am
is
concerned about that.
fair point. I mean, you already named the things: UCLA coming to Big Ten, Oklahoma out, Utah, Arizona, Utah in the Big 12, Cal and Stanford in the ACC, which that is a trip. Um, that
It
really
is.
is.
Yeah, and talk about like these teams like ACC, like traditionally, Clemson was a brand new program, but traditionally NC State, University of North Carolina,
Hmm.
Pittsburgh, they weren't very strong teams. Like they were kind of mid-tier, like, might make regionals, might not kind of teams. ACC started sponsoring gymnastics, has their Power Five conference resources behind them. And there's all this potential for these mid-tier teams to really kind of rise up and get attention and get better recruits and
Yep.
use the big Power Five resources to do a lot better. Um, and then 1 year after that happens, these schools with way more recruiting power and way more history coming in from the West Coast are just hopefully, again, hopefully they raise the performance of all these other teams. And they're not just overshadowing these other teams that I think deserve more recognition than they've had in the past.
Agree. Agree. Then you have like your Mountain West, another like a Boise State. They're favored to repeat as champs. Utah
Yeah.
State ranked.
Yes,
Um,
and I do want to talk about, I am a Mountain West girl. I'm a Utah State
no.
girl through and through. I never will not be. I am very, very excited to see what happens in the Mountain West this year. Boise State, obviously, really tough team to beat. But I think Utah State has huge potential for growth from last year. They have untapped potential from last year. It's their third season with this new head coach, Kristen White, shout out. After an entire conference winning team, basically almost was essentially poached by this new program at Clemson. Like they've had a lot to overcome and a lot to figure out. And I will continue to pull for them. We have not seen everything that's possible from Utah State, especially not this team, especially not these gymnasts. Um, they've got some great super seniors coming back, Brianna Brooks, Jenna Eagles, who's just been a joy to watch come into her own in Division 1 after transferring from Division 2. Angel Stewart, and then just a whole host of underclassmen who have unfinished business. So yeah, I'll be watching. I'll be excited to watch Mountain West action very closely this year.
And then you obviously have the subsection, the elite, the Olympians
Oh
coming
yes,
back. Jade
right. Because on
Carey,
top of all of that, we also have these Olympians on these teams we
hmm
haven't even talked about yet.
like Jade at Oregon State, Jordan
Yes,
Childs, who's probably, I mean, if there's riding the probably the Olympic darling. So,
yeah, one of the most famous, probably more famous than Biles because of the controversy at the
hmm
Olympics.
coming to the
Um,
Big Ten with UCLA, she's back. So it'll be
yeah,
great to see them all back in action.
yeah. Interesting point about Oregon State. Oregon State's going to be interesting this year because they have chosen they don't have a conference.
Yeah.
So they're, not going to have a conference championship. It's going to be interesting to see that what they do that last week of the regular season, whether they're
hmm
going to do another meet, whether they'll be invited to kind of join another conference championship. But Oregon State's still going to be Oregon State. Jade Carey's still going to be Jade Carey. And they're just the Beavers are doing their own thing. So that'll be fun.
Do you think the people who do the rankings will be harsher on them because they're not in a conference?
I don't know. That's a good question. Where are they ranked? So it looks like on the poll, they're ranked 19th.
hmm
And so that is after finishing 21st last year.
Okay. Okay.
So that
Interesting.
seems about right.
Yeah, 19th, 21st. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, we'll see what happens.
And then we already talked about Georgia, their new leadership, and they're going to be the maybe most entertaining team with all the stops they're pulling in, big bucks coming through.
Yes.
Um,
Georgia did not come to play. Well, they came to play, but not in a playful way.
so now with conference realignment, all of that stuff, how to watch. So you got the ESPN, obviously, you got the SEC network, you got the ACC network, and you got the Big Ten network. So
Mhm.
Sarah, out of those four, how many do you have?
How many do I have? Well, none right now. I'm going to have to
So,
subscribe pretty soon.
okay.
I will say, I say this every year, Mountain West, all those Mountain West teams, they have stream their meets for free. So get that Mountain West app, watch the meets for free. Very easy team to start following.
Okay.
I think it's probably ESPN's probably the easiest to get
Mhm.
because it's kind of a more commonly subscribed to and included package. So ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, and ESPNW. Those are kind of the big four. Lots of teams also have the pluses. So ESPN Plus hosts a lot of meets.
Yeah.
Big Ten Plus, which has terrible reviews from gymnastics fans, but if you like UCLA, it's a good opportunity to watch. So yeah, I think I'm going to need to do some research and figure out how I can watch some gymnastics this year, especially with those SEC teams. Be great if I could get SEC network somehow. So I'll look into it.
And then you got regionals, which is it's ahead from now, but time has been zooming.
Yes.
April 2nd through the 6th, and the nationals, April 17th through the 19th, and we will see then
Yeah.
who out of these five teams or someone who was not mentioned because there's a long season to be played becomes national champs. Anything else, Sarah?
No, that's all. I'm really excited for this season. I'm excited to follow gymnastics at a time when I'm not also working on a PhD. Like, I feel like I have so much more mental bandwidth. So I'm excited to uh, be truly relaxed when I'm watching gymnastics rather than artificially relaxed.
Fair enough. And it'll be interesting because, again, I think with this season, especially, there's so many storylines that are going through with Oklahoma trying to get theirs back, LSU trying to repeat, Florida trying to crack through, California trying to say that it wasn't a fluke, Utah always being that threat. And then again, there's some teams down there that we didn't say that
Mhm.
they're going to do something this year.
Yeah, watch
And
out for Mizzou. Watch out for Iowa. Watch out for everybody. You never know what'll happen.
And we'll see. And Harold, out of all the dates that we put, I don't think we didn't put the most important date. When does the season begin?
Oh my goodness. First weekend in January. I believe it's January 5th. Ooh.
That would be the first weekend post New Year's, you know.
Yes, so January 5th. There will be some or January 3rd, 4th, 5th, there are going to be some big kind of podium meets. And then by January 10th, all of our teams should be in action. So,
Yeah, because I know where I am
yeah.
at, Ohio State does not start they don't have their first meet till January 11th.
Oh man, are you going to go to any this year, Martin?
I am. I'm going to try the times. It's the timing of some of the stuff because of my own schedule, but I mean I'm eyeing the one right on March 2nd, 5 p.m. on a Sunday. Well, it just depends on how long the meet goes because that is when they are against UCLA. So that's where I could potentially,
Holy
get to
cow.
see Jordan Childs in person.
I didn't realize UCLA was coming to Ohio State this year. That's amazing.
That's at the end of the year. Actually, Ohio State plays UCLA twice because they're in the 2025 Sprouts Farmers Market Collegiate Quad with Ohio State, Arkansas, Kentucky, and UCLA.
Hey, that's coming up the first weekend, right?
So UCLA is already in that, and then they got UCLA in the Big Four meet with Rutgers, Nebraska, and Ohio State and UCLA. So that is on a Sunday, March 2nd. So that would be one I would be very interested in. If not, there are some Saturday ones and some Friday ones that look very promising. But yeah, I want to try and get out there for at least one or two.
You should. They're fun. They're lots of fun.
So, with that being said, by the time you guys listen to this, holidays may be over, or just about to be over. So, if you listen to this before the holidays, or happy holidays, hope you guys spend time with family, friends, or just recharge your batteries before the 2025 year. And if this is after the holidays, we hope you had a great holidays and you are recharged and you're ready to go because gymnastics is starting. Sarah is back doing her thing here, and we will chronicle this season. And with that being said, the L7C podcast signing out.